Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Wildcard Sunday and that's why we are looking at this comic here, the Punisher one-shot. Punisher kills the Marvel Universe. Before we get to that though, I will mention we are on the road to 250 subs here at Big Baby Reviews. Once we hit that number, give me a couple of weeks as I shoot these videos ahead of time. We'll have a special vid to commemorate that moment. Just want to take the time out to thank my humble subscribers list. I've got 140, 150 subscribers in and around there, at least as of today. So thank you so much, guys, for sticking in there with me. I do want to point out, though, that I've looked at my analytics. You guys are only 11% of the views on my channel. 89% of the people viewing these videos, actually watching them, are not subscribed. I've seen this on other channels, right, that there's usually kind of a split between that, but I didn't think it could be this large where there's 89% of people who are not subbed. So not twisting your arm, but if you are so inclined, it really helps us out if you can subscribe to the channel. If you're watching the content regularly, it helps us get a bit more promotion and a better look for other people on YouTube. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, anyone who might be interested in this kind of content to check out Big Baby Reviews and the King Comics channel and to like and subscribe what they see if, again, they are so inclined. So moving on from that shameless promo, we're going to talk again about The Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. Why am I looking at this comic? This comic is just pure fun. It answers all sorts of questions that we've all asked about superheroes and that we never thought we'd get the answer to, at least back in the day, right? With these corporate-owned kind of trademarks and stuff, there's only so far you can go in the storylines and the gore and the sex and all that kind of stuff, right? So this one here just kind of looks, it's self-evident what the kind of premise is, right? It's the name of the comic. So it's kind of like an alternate universe. And of course, the creative team, we've got Garth Ennis, and that's why we're going to be talking a lot about story here because, you know, most times, as you know, I focus on the artwork. But when it comes to Garth Ennis, he is one of my favorite writers, and I love all of his stuff. If you liked Preacher, if you liked The Boys comic, if you liked The Boys TV show, you're probably pretty sure bet you're going to enjoy this comic, right? Because again, it answers those questions that we never dare to ask, to be seen at least in corporate created comics. And here, for some reason, this is a weird period in Marvel's history. It seems like, I'm not sure if this is reprinted later. Like, it feels like this was done earlier and printed later once Garth Ennis maybe got popular or was selling more books with Preacher and stuff like that. So we'll take a look at that when we open up, see if we can dig up some information on that. Great cover. I'm not quite sure. I don't think the interior artist did this. I'm getting a signature here. It says Percival, possibly. So the interior artist is Doug Bratwaite, who in here is, you know, the art is serviceable is what I would say. It's not him at his prime. I feel like he's kind of starting out. And it almost feels, I might be wrong, but like some sort of Marvel UK story that was never really published through the Marvel UK imprint. And eventually, again, when Garth Ennis started becoming popular, maybe they pulled it out and printed it. But is, again, definitely not in the regular Marvel universe. It is an alternate timeline. So yeah, writer Garth Ennis, penciler Doug Bratwaite. Like, look at the list of inkers throughout this comic. So this was like a rush job or a fill-in or something at some point. Not quite sure. So there's a reprint editor. I'm trying to get some information maybe on the context for how this was printed. We don't have any kind of generic... Nope. All right, so no real information there. Maybe we'll discover some along the way. All right, so we establish, you know, as a kid here, this is young Frank Castle who becomes the Punisher, kind of helping out and protecting Matt Murdock from some bullies, right? So we're establishing real quick a friendship between the two guys that'll pay off later in the storyline. Now, before we move on, you do have to know, Garth Ennis is very vocal about the fact that he hates superheroes. He kind of grew up on war comics mostly, and he just finds them highly... unrealistic, dramatic, and, you know, the soap opera aspects is all stuff that he finds kind of pretentious and really doesn't enjoy. He finds them juvenile, he said, or juvenile, he said repeatedly, right? So this is kind of his opportunity to skewer the superheroes that he hates so much, and again to be able to answer some of those questions. And some of those questions in this comic, mostly they're going to get answered, is how would you kill this superhero? How would you get rid of these guys, you know, this group? And that's kind of what's going to be answered here, because eventually the Punisher is going to pretty much figure it out for all of them. So there's some sort of basically huge, smorgasbord, and I will read more captions than I usually do in the comics because, again, I'm focusing more on the story here. Even though the art, like I said, is Doug Bradway, it's all right. It's, early Doug Bradway. It's serviceable. He does get a lot better, and I do think he's a great artist. But there's, some rough bits here and there in this comic. But again, I'm gonna read some of the text because it's just, this book is funny and hilarious, and just to put you in context, make sure you understand, right? So the big superhero smorgasbord that we usually get against aliens and the Brood and all these races and stuff, and they're all kind of fighting in the park. And Frank Castle is racing to the park because, as he says, my wife took the kids to the park, so he's freaking out because he knows this is going on, heard it on the radio, I guess. All units be advised, major superhuman conflict, Central Park and Fifth Avenue. Hold positions, do not enter the area. Repeat, do not enter. So his wife and kids are there. So he's obviously concerned. You know the story if you know the Punisher story. So he shows up, and I'm not quite sure. He's got in this, reality, he's a police officer possibly, or a SHIELD agent. I'm not quite sure. Maybe we'll find out later. But he shows up, and all the superheroes are kind of standing around here, and Daredevil seems to be basically giving them all shit, and he's saying, "You ripped the park apart with lasers and force blasts, and God knows what, and you expect not to hurt any innocents? We only learned of the alien force at the last second. We had no time to clear the area, and this is none of your affair, Daredevil." So what's being implied is that, some of the innocents in the park have been killed because of this conflict between the superheroes and the aliens, right? So this is kind of a Garth Ennis thing where, he's applying this idea. When we read mainstream comics, it's implied that no matter what, all the innocents are saved by the superheroes and no one ever dies, or rarely, right? That's generally how it goes. And here he's admitting that, if this, really were taking place in a more realistic reality close to ours, and there were superheroes, this kind of stuff would happen, right? These are the kind of things he does in The Boys, and the themes that he's touched upon in that book are the same themes that he's applying here. That these people, with godlike powers would basically, consider themselves, whether publicly, out loud, or just behind closed doors, superior to most humans, so that some of the, those human considerations are beneath them, right? Because of their powers, and, for the greater good, they fended off, the aliens and stuff. So a few innocent people, well, collateral damage, right? This woman is dead. Her children are dead. It was unavoidable in a crossfire like that. And so that's when Frank Castle shows up and realizes, you don't see them, it's all off camera, right? Because I guess even then it's a Marvel comic, you can't really show that. And there's some things you can't show, just like right here. Kind of an odd payoff to be the last panel. You would expect this to be on the page turn, right? Like, you're sorry. And then you turn the page and you would see him, what's implied at least here, because again, he can't show a direct headshot, I don't think, in Marvel Comics. So he's just kind of blown Cyclops' head off. Is this approved by the Comics Code? That would be funny. There is no indication of that. Okay. Still holding back though, obviously, not fully. Maybe we wouldn't even get this back in old day Marvel. But it is still a corporate entity and they got to protect their trademarks. So yeah, not quite as graphic as, say, Chapel in Youngblood #10. If you've ever seen that iconic illustration. And if you haven't, go check out Youngblood #10. I also have a review of that issue. You can check it out there. It's on the channel. So Punisher just starts blowing away, all these guys, some of the X-Men. I believe this is Shadowcat here who's been hit, or, just maybe a generic X-Woman, not quite sure. Hawkeye bites it here, right? So Wolverine, instant kind of rage, you know how he is. Attacks Punisher. Colossus holds him back. So obviously Punisher, even though he's probably injured severely, not dead. And of course Daredevil, we know, is Matt Murdock, has seen it all. This is obviously from that first page as they were kids, his best friend or his friend, right? Or at least they knew each other as they were kids. So he shows up, basically Matt Murdock, that optimistic guy who's, a lawyer and a crime fighter, to help basically represent the Punisher in light of his murder of some of these superheroes, right? Goes to court, sentenced, but not dropped off out of prison. Wait a second, realizes this ain't Rikers, right? That's where he was supposed to be sent. Nope, he's been pulled in by this gentleman with the mangled face, right? And he basically explains here that he's not the only one who's had, you know, something taken away from him or something tragic happened to him because of the actions of superheroes, right? So clearly something to do with this character's face has to do with superheroes as well. And he's then introducing Frank Castle, right, to all these other figures here who've been in similar situations, right? Different levels of mutilation, body horror. This guy seems to probably have some mental issues now at this point. So clearly stated in this panel, pretty awesome panel too, we want you to punish them, right? So that's why he's been brought over. And what he's basically saying is they're a group of some of the richest people in the world, right? So, you know, any kind of weapon, anything that you want, you can have if it means you taking out the superheroes, right? So he says, I need equipment, funding, data on the targets, and it'd take a long time. You'd have them all. Will you do it? Yeah. So then the carnage starts. So we have a kind of a typical Spider-Man versus Venom fight here, right? And, you know, I like how just slowly here, spider sense is tingling, Spider-Man says, something behind me. And you get kind of just a quick kind of shot of the Punisher here. That's a pretty clever panel there. But Spider-Man's distracted by Venom, right? There's barbed tasers from all directions. Venom, stop. I can't dodge with you, you know, annoying me, I guess is what he didn't finish, or holding on to him. These little wires won't stop us, is what Venom says. You idiot, I'm not doing this. And then all of a sudden there's zapped, right? Kind of an electric current. And Venom's suit has disappeared. Eddie Brock's kind of face is, again, kind of melted, doing the RoboCop, if you know what I'm talking about. Punisher walks up to him, just, you know, shoots the crap out of him. Assumedly, I'm assuming he kills him. So Spider-Man, suffering also from some of that, you know, from the electric shock, the burning and mutilating and almost melting of the skin, which again is reminiscent of that classic scene in RoboCop. And Peter Parker, you know, Spider-Man, stop. Who? The Punisher. Punish? What for? Why us? Why me? Right? Because somebody had to be first. All right? So it's implied that he's started with Spider-Man and then he's going to move on. Eventually, we realize he's, again, like in the regular Marvel Universe, at a certain point in Punisher's history, he's working with Microchip, who's helping him out with the gear and the surveillance and all the kind of tech side of things of this kind of operation, right? And we see here that he's not just, you know, in a wheelchair. He's had his legs cut off here. So how'd you lose the legs? Doc Ock broke onto the base, got mad when I wouldn't give him the missile keys. But isn't it always the way? Now this is, again, this is the bit of fun that I was talking about, you know, this thing of you can't kill the Hulk and you can't destroy him. Obviously, this is never going to happen in regular continuity. They're never going to let it get to this point, but he's kind of pointing out something a little bit obvious. So Hulk's on one of his regular rampages here. Hulk smash. He's mad. He's breaking stuff, probably killing people, right? So Garth Ennis basically has the Punisher here shoot, you know, we find out later, obviously it's a tracker onto the Hulk, right? And now to wait for Hyde to revert to Jekyll. So he's just waiting for the Hulk to return and revert back to Bruce Banner. So he's following, the signal's getting, you know, faster and louder, following the tracker. And there you go. He discovers, you know, after expending all this energy, you would assume Bruce Banner's a little bit tired, so he catches him sleeping. And I just love just how casual is it. What was that? Like, you're half awake. You don't even know what's going on. Bam! And so the Punisher has solved the problem of the Hulk. And here I'll go quickly here. You get another sequence where he basically just, you know, shoots at the Kingpin until eventually he's been shot enough where he actually, you know, gets shot through the brain here. I would assume through the head, and he dies. Falls on the Punisher. Punisher brought back to court. Matt Murdock once again defending him. This court, life means life. Take him away. So he's gotten life, but of course, once again, not taken to Rikers Island, but taken to this rich dude's house. And once again, he can start preparing for the next bit of operations there to destroy the next Marvel Universe figures he wants to get rid of. So the thinking behind Doctor Doom, as we find out later, which is pretty smart, you know, again, Ennis comes from a long line or tradition of reading military comics, war comics, and he's got a pretty good, decent knowledge of military tactics and strategies overall. So it would make sense that Frank Castle, who's a Vietnam veteran, would use those tactics. In this case, he's realizing that Doctor Doom, if he can get, the upper hand on him, can then use all the weapons and magic and arsenal that he has and he holds to then kill the other superheroes or super beings that he wants to get rid of. So that's basically what's happening here. He's very lucky, right? Using this magnetic mine that attaches to his head, sends out a message or emits a signal that destroys all the Doom bots. Pretty convenient, but hey, that's the kind of story it is. So eventually, even with the magnetic mine, it didn't completely destroy Doom. So kind of a cool implied thing where the Punisher grabs a hammer and probably finishes Doom off with that. You can hear clang, clang, clang here, squitch, cleverly done off panel with sound effects. And with Microchip now, Microchip, you could take on an army with this stuff, and that was the idea, right? But, he does admit Doom was right. I am out of my depth. If he hadn't stopped to give his big speech, I'd have been torn in two, right? So he's cognizant that Doom could have kicked his ass, but he survived. And again, going to use that Doom technology. And more specifically, this is being highlighted for a reason. And this is one of the best bits in the whole comic. And I'm going to read it to you because, again, this clearly shows Garth Ennis's total disdain for the X-Men. I think even maybe more so than other superheroes. And I think he's kind of referencing the overly dramatic soap opera aspect of it and the very kind of talky Chris Claremont kind of era where everyone's kind of, taking cool poses and talking for a very long time. And I get a sense that that's what he's doing a parody of here. And this moment I just think is hilarious. So I will read the dialogue so you guys kind of pick it up too. So all of a sudden, right, we turn the page. You've got all these kind of X-Men villains and the X-teams on this side. Some, typical kind of stereotypical crossover event, confrontation, right? Good versus evil. Magneto. Ironic indeed that our final conflict should be played out here upon the moon, beneath this air-sealed dome you have erected. Far from Earth, exactly where humanity has always longed to banish us mutants. Was this irony foremost in your minds when you lured us here, Storm? Or did you, in your simple way, miss it? Ironic or not, you're right when you say this is our final battle, Magneto. For we, the combined X-teams, cannot allow you, Apocalypse, and your unholy alliance of acolytes and evil mutants to continue in your wrongdoing. That's cutting a promo right there, right? But it was you who chose the moon as our battlefield and set up the dome, not us. What? We simply followed the directions of the challenge that you sent us and came here. So Magneto thinks that the X-Men set up this airtight dome, air-sealed dome, but no, the X-Men think and vice versa. I'm getting confused here. Magneto thinks the X-Men did it. The X-Men think Magneto did it. There you go. That's a bit clearer. So what's going on here? Why play games at this most critical, most apocalyptic hour, Storm? We sent no challenge. You did, and we followed it. But if each of us answered an invitation to war that neither side had sent, who? Wait a minute. What's that? So they're figuring out, obviously, that if neither of them did, someone is kind of setting them up, but clearly realize it way too late. We get a shot of the nuclear bomb just before it goes off to remind us of what we saw in the last panel. The Punisher has set this up on the moon somehow, I guess with Victor Von Doom's technology, and boom, all of the X-villains and all of the X-teams gone, all in one fell swoop. Now there's a giant step for all mankind. So the Garth Ennis dark humor, of course. So apparently Wolverine wasn't on that planet, right? Now he's turned into basically a drunk here. And this monologue here by Wolverine is kind of funny in a dark way and gives you an idea of where he's at now, why this emotional low point. Everything has gone wrong these past couple of years. Can't believe it. All my buddies died on the moon and me in Japan on a lousy wild goose chase. Probably implied the Punisher, put him on that wild goose chase to maybe separate him from the rest of the crew. Maybe he's the only one who could have possibly survived. I don't know. The Avengers get fried in a teleporter accident. Someone floods the vault, drowns every creepo they're holding there. Captain America's supposed to be investigating, but he ain't got zip. I mean, I even heard they found Mr. Fantastic dead in a dumpster. Punisher walking up to Wolverine. You're breaking my heart. Say what? That kind of talk just might get me riled, pal. I know Garth Ennis doesn't like Wolverine as well. There's a famous another moment in his Punisher run, Punisher Wolverine team up. That's another hilarious issue that I'll have to cover at some point because yeah, that's a funny one as well. So Punisher says, "I'm the one who sent you chasing shadows in Japan while I did your buddy's runt, like we talked about earlier. Been saving you for a special occasion. Remember me?" So he points out his face, the claw marks Wolverine left there. So Wolverine kind of puts two and two together. We have a quick fight here, you know, Punisher versus Wolverine, but Punisher's got a plan here. So he kicks him through the steel cage door here, and we're getting a hint here in the background of what's to come. So pretty gruesome, gets sliced through the hand, but allows him to hang on to Wolverine. Stabs Wolverine with his own claws, and then throws him right into this electrical transformer breaker thingamabob. I'm not up on my electricity, but clearly a lot of energy and electricity being generated here, maximum voltage. And of course, because Wolverine is made out of his bones have been covered and laced in adamantium, it is a metal, so you would assume it conducts electricity. And slowly bubbling away, and all that's left is Wolverine's metal skeleton. And you know I love these. I'll always mention it when I see one. Double page spread, great kind of montage, almost kind of traditional Marvel old school with the heads in the back, kind of like that. It's got a Spider-Man Romita vibe to it, with some inset panels here to move the story along and not just be a gratuitous double page splash. Good stuff. As I said, Braithwaite's not at the height of his powers, you know, it's serviceable, but you know, some of those, this is a pretty cool double page spread all around. Kind of an off-model, strange-looking Venom, I would say. Once again, back in prison. Once again, Matt Murdock's going to protect him. Once again, back out. And in this instance against Captain America, maybe this is one of the weaker instances of you know, how he's able to strategically kill Captain America. Not the most clever thing here, but basically, I'll read a bit and you'll understand what happens. So Captain America has been fighting, pushing Punisher around, Frank Castle. "You were a soldier once, now you're a disgrace." "Yes, sir, I was a soldier, but I guess you could just say I once had myself my lay kind of a day." "A what?" "My lay, sir, Vietnam." So explain to Captain America that he was in Vietnam, and you know, he still calls him sir, right? So still a sign of respect, which is kind of odd, even though he's trying to kill him. "Or have you forgotten the Nam? I know we didn't fight in the same circles. If you had, you know to scope out a scene before a battle, like I did when I stashed this. You haven't been where I've been at all, so who are you to judge?" And he blows his head off, right? But here's the thing, you know, this idea that he stashed a gun before he lured Captain America into this fight, I guess, possible. It's kind of a Batman thing. Batman's done stuff like that, right, in some of the Batman comics. But I did a little weak, but whatever. Not the best kill moment is what I would say. But overall, you know, the story is just fun. Alternate universe stuff, so you know, nothing is canon here, so it's just a whole bit of fun, this whole issue. I just enjoy it for its dark side and its dark humor. It's typical Garth Ennis. So what's going on here? Punisher shows up to his rich benefactors and explains to them, you know, what's going on here. "I did what I want. I do what I do for me, Kesselring, or I did. After tonight, I'm through." So he doesn't want to do it anymore. Doesn't want to be their private killing machine, right? Basically kills him and then tells them to the rest of the crew to stand off and back off, or else he'll do the same to them, right? And ultimately, as the issue starts with these two, Matt Murdock and Frank Castle, the issue finishes with them, and basically, you know, it seems like Daredevil is the last superhero left. "Welcome home, Frank. Back where it all began, like the beginning of the issue. "Not for me. It began for me way uptown in the park 5 years ago. Hell's Kitchen means nothing to me now." "You're wrong, Frank. Maybe you've just forgotten, but this is where it began." So again, he's not remembering that, but at the same time, doesn't quite yet know that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, right? So we get the typical kind of confrontation that you're used to between Daredevil and Punisher in the regular Marvel comics. But here, Punisher takes his chance. I don't know if we actually, again, there's a time at Marvel where I guess, you know, entrance wounds and stabbing wounds were still kind of a no-no. This kind of reminder of like when Elektra gets stabbed in the Frank Miller run, right? Where it kind of pokes through, but you don't see it poke through his costume. So we're getting kind of a repeat of that here. So he stabs Daredevil in the heart. And Daredevil, as he's dying, pulls off his mask. Castle sees that it's Matt Murdock. There's always someone under the mask, Frank, but you killed us all. No, Matt, there's one more to go. So again, a really quick, snappy end, and just really goes to a dark place where, I mean, you could assume, right, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure Punisher's committed suicide. So it seems like at this point, his plan was just to get rid of all of them and him last. So he was actually, you know, ultimately aware of him being a monster, just like those superheroes. And that, you know, once he'd gotten rid of all the monsters, he was the last monster that needed to go. Again, fairly typical kind of Garth Ennis point of view here. Very dark. But again, just kind of a funny, odd issue that, you know, you wouldn't think this would be out there. It's not very well known. I don't know of many people who know this issue, but definitely worth checking out for something different and fun, and for that kind of dark comedy if you enjoy The Boys and most of the stuff Garth Ennis has put out, like Preacher. Just to see, contains material originally published in magazine form as Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe, first printing 2008. Okay, so that's pretty far off. I still feel, yeah, so copyright 1995 and 2008. So that indicates to me that the original story was probably written up and drawn in 1995. And then for some reason, either never published, but then in this case, they call it a reprint. I'm not quite sure how that goes. But again, first printing 2008. And then originally copyright 1995 and then 2008. So again, I think story maybe have been created in 1995, but republished, not published at the time, possibly, or republished in 2008. That's a little confusing. If anyone has any definitive answers on that, please let me know in the comments. I would certainly appreciate it. If you enjoy the videos and you like the content that I'm putting up, please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, helps us get us out there, and helps us promote the channel to other people who might be interested in checking it out. So just want to thank everyone who's watched and wishing everyone out there a great day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.